Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we don't do many shows on Auburn football or the Kansas City Royals, but you just texted me the topic of today's show. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess, if you want to. So what do you want to talk about the early 90s Kansas City Royals?
Well, this is more of a Tecmo Bowl show. I just wanted to talk about the greatest, arguably, here's the question. Tom, imagine Bo Jackson without any weapons in Contra.
He kind of was his own spread gun there. I don't know. He was he was his own up, down, left, right, BA start of both football and baseball in his own way.
I call him the Bonami Code. So we are talking about Ohio State's Bo Jackson, in fact, and what to expect. Yes. What to expect.
That makes way more sense. Okay.
Yeah. Now, we'll save the other stuff for the summer. But we're continuing our look at the returning freshmen and what they did in year one, what to expect for them in year two. And Bo Jackson is an interesting one because, again, he did not play in the opener against Texas because he was just a true freshman. And you know what? You don't want to put that on a freshman. And then he ends up leading the Buckeyes with 1,090 yards rushing over the course of the season. Takes over, becomes the first Ohio State football player to rush for over 100 yards in his first two games, which he did against Grambling and whatever else was after Grambling or whatever there. But becomes the starting running back. And then, Tom, now what to expect in year two. Before you tell me that, I want to go over the last four Ohio State running backs to rush for 1,000 yards as as freshmen. And we'll throw Mike Weber in here in 2016 as a redshirt freshman. So, Maurice Clarett, 2002, 1,237 yards rushing. Tom, do you remember what he did as a sophomore?
I expect Bo Jackson to be able to meet or exceed Maurice Clarett's sophomore season. I can say that with a pretty high degree of confidence.
Okay. Mike Weber, as a redshirt freshman in 2016, rushed for 1,096 yards. The next year, 626 yards. J.K. Dobbins, 1,403 yards as a true freshman in 2017. The next year, 1,053. Travion Henderson, 1,255 yards as a true freshman in 2021. The next year, 571 yards. So to come out of this show, Tom, and say Bo Jackson, 1,090 yards, he's going to do more than that in 2026, he would be the first to not necessarily rush for a second 1,000 yards, but the drop-offs from these freshman 1,000-yard rushers to their second season is insane. And even though J.K. Dobbins rushed for 1,000 yards as a sophomore, I think his drop-off may have been the second most insane compared to Maurice Clarett. But it's crazy that, and they all have their own reasons, injuries and things like that. But to just assume Bo Jackson's now going to be a 1,400-yard rusher, that's not the way. And I didn't even throw Robert Smith in here. I should have, who rushed for 1,000 yards as a true freshman and then went to class as a sophomore and didn't even play football. Oof. Tom.
I was just pulling up Robert Smith's stats because I'm like, he forgot Robert Smith. Yeah. Robert Smith, 1,064 yards as a freshman in 1990. And then Elliot Uzelac had opinions on what he should and shouldn't do in 1991. And so he didn't play. So, yes, so he was on, he equaled Maurice Clarett's stats for his second season for basically the exact opposite reasons. But yes, so it's interesting. This is a sophomore slump kind of thing that at some point, it's different reasons, as you said, for all these guys. Sometimes it was injury. Sometimes it was just playing time getting split. Sometimes it was just, guys just sort of taking a step back. It's so interesting how consistently that has happened. And, I look at Bo Jackson and I don't think there's any reason to think that that's going to happen with him. But I don't know that I would have looked at J.K. Dobbins and thought, well, guess what's going to happen to J.K. Dobbins as a sophomore? Guess what's going to happen to Mike Weber as a sophomore? It just, it just feels like that's that's just so interesting that has happened so consistently. But Bo Jackson, to me, maybe the big exception, the thing that maybe makes him an exception, is that he was just so consistent last year, where he put up 1,000 yards. He did it in 13 games because, as you said, he didn't play in the first game. He never rushed for more than 117 yards in a game. But there were 6 games, almost half of the games he played, he rushed for between 105 and 117 yards. He was very consistently, he was between 4.7 and 4.7 yards or more in 12 of his 13 games. The only time he didn't hit 4.7 yards per carry was against Wisconsin. It was just very, very consistent all season. And if he stays healthy, and you would assume he's going to stay healthy or healthier, because the second season you should be stronger, you should be bigger, you should be more prepared for the beating that you're going to take as a running back. And the offensive line should be better this year. So everything I look at, I don't see this as, well, yes, he put up 1,000 yards, but 290 of that was against Grambling, and so that doesn't really count. And then he had another 250 against Ohio University, and so that doesn't count. It was like all through, it wasn't the greatest schedule in the history of Ohio State football. I'm not going to lie to you about that, but 108, 109, 80, 63, 47, 26, that was against Wisconsin, 105, 75, 112, 110, 117, 83, 55. It was just the back half of the schedule where you typically see guys hit that freshman wall. He just kind of burst through it like the Kool-Aid man and kept going. And so you look at all that, and all of that says to me, this is a guy who should be able to kind of pick up where he left off last year, maybe have a little bit of a better season in terms of total production. But there's not, I don't think there's anyone on this roster that I look at and go, this is someone who's going to take a bunch of carries from Bo Jackson. Like, if Bo Jackson's healthy, I think Bo Jackson's RB1 this year.
Yeah, and it's, you look around and where are the carries going to go, basically. Mike Weber, if I recall, like, he was injured in camp of 2017, which is one of the reasons J.K. Dobbins kind of emerged there. And then in 2018, Weber is back and they're splitting carries, and that impacts Dobbins. But J.K. Dobbins, as a true freshman, 7.2 yards per carry. As a sophomore, 4.6. And we've talked many, many years about why that was, or some of the reasons why that was. That's just crazy. And then Travion to go from 6.8 yards per carry as a true freshman to 5.3 as a sophomore. Bo Jackson, 6.1 last year. There's no reason to expect some sort of a downturn. And if there is, then it's because, in my opinion, you got Isaiah West and Jacoby Jackson, who need more carries than the 2 and 3 got last year. And yet, but that's still, to me, I think Bo Jackson can still rush for 1,100 yards, and those other guys can rush for 500 or 600 in whatever order. So in terms of expectations for this year, there's no reason to expect anything but more. I don't know how much more. And again, he had 180, 179 carries last year. Does he hit 200 this year? Do they need him to hit 200? I don't know that they need that, depending on how many games. I think they can do a lot of what they did this past year. And I think if he gives you 6 yards a carry, you're going to take it.
Yeah, I think with, we mentioned briefly the offensive line. The offensive line should be better this year. I think you're going to see a better Julian Sayin in terms of seeing the field and maybe being able to do more downfield in the passing game, which should then maybe open some things up in the run game more. The addition of Arthur Smith is going to probably bring some new concepts and diversify the run game and probably make that a little bit better. So I keep looking at lots of reasons where, you could say, well, boy, if they really lost the coordinator that made that offense, the running game go, or, oh boy, the offensive line is really going to take a step back this year, or boy, they're just not going to have the passing game. And there's nothing there that you look at and go, this should be a step back for the running game. You've got your running backs back. You've got your offensive line back. You got your quarterback back. You got a guy who is known for being a stronger run game coordinator than the guy you had last year. All of it sort of points to this should at least be as good, if not better than it was last year. And I think, Bo Jackson should be bigger, stronger, more prepared than he was last year. Because, coming in as a true freshman, that is a difficult thing to do. So all of that kind of points to this should be a better run game. And then, the only thing that I think you would look at and go, boy, it would be great if they had a quarterback who was a threat in the run game, which would allow them to maybe diversify things. And, the great unknown right now is Tavian St. Clair. What kind of a role does he have? Can he take on some kind of a role as a more of a dual threat quarterback than Julian Sayin? Because Sayin just with his build that's not going to be who he is. He has a lot of things he's great at. That's just not going to be who he is as a quarterback. Is Tavian St. Clair someone who could bring that to them? Because that's another thing. We're now looking at breaking a couple trends here, which is 1,000-yard freshman seasons followed by not nearly as good sophomore seasons. And Tony, if Ohio State can just get that second quarterback run package in there, that is another trend that is probably right up there with second year guys coming up with 1,000-year freshman rushing seasons. In terms of, the Tate Martell package, if they can just get that going, the Lincoln Keenholz package, if they can just get that going, the, I don't know the Devin Brown package, if they can just get that going. Yeah. Just so many times over the years, it's been like, well, that would be a very logical solution if they can just make it work. And, well, at some point, Tony, it has to work, right?
No, it doesn't actually. I think Bo Jackson would also agree that he left some yards on the field last year. So even, getting stronger, how many times did we see just like a shove or an ankle tackle that brought him down? It's like, boy, you wouldn't think that would. Next year, you wouldn't think that. This coming year, you wouldn't think that would. So even if I think 6.1 yards per carry, you'll take that, but wouldn't shock me if he's better than that, because he probably could have rushed for 1,200 yards last year just if he had made a couple more people miss. And so let's see. All right, get your chisel out, Tom. I am going with 1,176 yards rushing. I believe that would be the only time that anybody has ever rushed for 1,176 yards in Ohio State history. We'll see if he's allowed to score any touchdowns. I don't know that he will be, but I'll go ahead and set that at, you know what? Let's go ahead and make that 11 touchdowns. And 6.34 yards per carry. All right. Sound good? It's a pretty spicy meatball. And if you're averaging 6.3 yards per carry, you're like, boy, shouldn't you rush more yards? Why are you only touching the ball 180 times? Why don't you touch the ball more than that? And it's like, well, you got other guys. And you've got Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, you got other guys, and you don't want to run him into the ground, because you got to keep, you have to take a little bit of a long-term view here, where you look at Quinshon Judkins as a junior at Ole Miss, and he had, I think, almost twice as many carries as he did as a senior at Ohio State. And it's like, boy, he looked so much fresher at the end of his senior season at Ohio State than he did at the end of his junior season at Ole Miss. Why could that possibly be? I couldn't even imagine why. So I think that is one of the lessons that I think they have definitely taken away from that 2024 season, is spread the carries around. Your bell cow running back should have 15 carries a game, maybe 17 carries a game, not 25 or 27 carries a game. And I think they're going to continue with that, because they do have other options there. They do have Jacoby Jackson. They do have Isaiah West. You've got, we'll see what they get out of Legend Bay. We'll see what they get out of Turbo Rogers. You've got a lot of different possibilities in there. You've got options. We'll see how much that goes. The jump in touchdowns from 6 to 11 is interesting, but CJ Donaldson was such a touchdown vulture last year. He had 10, and he only averaged like 3-point-something yards a carry. So there are going to be more rushing touchdowns sort of available out there for someone to take. And sure, Bo Jackson, why not have it be him? He's, the rushing yardage total of 1,176. I think that's reasonable. I think between 1,100 and 1,200 yards would be, before you provided the context of the sophomore slumps or, of all these guys, I think I would have said, yeah, absolutely. Now I'm going, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? But, given all the stuff that I talked about earlier, all the areas where they should be at least a little better, I think a little bit of a step forward for him seems like a reasonable ask this year.
So with Mike Weber, J.K. Dobbins, Travion Henderson, They went from on average 1,251 yards as freshmen to 750 as sophomores. And I think if Bo Jackson is at 750, it's because injuries, and he's already, out this spring after getting his shoulder cleaned up. So needs to stay healthy, as we know. So there you go. Some thoughts on what to expect from Bo Jackson. Go ahead and throw your own thoughts if you're watching on YouTube. If you want to critique me for throwing my predictions out there, let's see how big and bad your predictions are. All right. And then I will critique you, and I'll find your email addresses and probably your home addresses, and I will critique you in your mailbox. Is that a threat, Tom? Is that federal? Should I probably delete that part?
You don't want to mess with the postal inspectors. I believe they have a 99% conviction rate. So you probably don't want to involve mailboxes or home addresses or maybe email addresses. Tony will just send general, at least lukewarm vibes in your direction. That's the worst, the threat. As his attorney, I will tell you that is the most he is willing to put out there as a possibility.
I'll send you an email that says "Sincerely perturbed, Tony G." So there you go. If you've not yet already loved this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. And of course, your 5-star rating and reviews and all of that good stuff. As you know, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we're talking about expectations for all kinds of players there on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.